Hi, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Hospitable Host podcast. I'm Miles from the marketing team here at Hospitable, an Inc. 5000 company that gives short-term rental hosts their time back. Joining me today is Bill Faeth, founder of Build Short-Term Rental Wealth, and also podcasts like STR Unfiltered. Bill is also the host of STR Wealth Conference, taking place in Nashville in February. Hospitable will actually be sponsoring that event in 2024, and we hope to see many of our listeners there. Also, Bill just secured the Rentalpreneur Award of the 2023 Shorties Awards. So congratulations are in order, Bill. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you very much for joining us, Bill. Did I miss anything off that list to start off?
No, that was fantastic. Thank you. You made my morning.
Awesome. And I already know, but for our listeners' sake, whereabouts are you calling in from today, Bill?
I am in Arley, Alabama. It's a lake called Lewis Smith Lake, about 45 minutes north of Birmingham, 2.5 hours south of Nashville. This is my second favorite property that I own. So we're down here for fall break.
Awesome. And for those just listening in and not seeing the visual, it looks stunning from what I can see over Bill's shoulder. There we go. There's the lake. Amazing.
It's an amazing lake, and I've had multiple properties down here. Actually, building a mega super property here right now. That's going to be probably 11 bedrooms. It's an awesome place. It's kind of a hidden gem. Not the most investable place. So those of you who are listening, you can check it out on Zillow or whatever you want to do. But there's much better places to invest than here. That's for sure.
Fair enough. You just don't want a big influx in your backyard. I know the real reason you're saying that, Bill.
No, you know what? When I moved here, when I bought here, this is my second property here. A lot of people followed me from an investment standpoint, and I made it abundantly clear in my social and in my group and all this stuff. This was a lifestyle asset, and it's a great look. I paid $799 for the property I'm in. I put about $125 into it. My wife completely redesigned it, and we did $185,000 last year. We're going to do about $165,000 this year. So for a sub-$1 million purchase today, that's not bad. But when we purchased it a year and a half ago, it was pretty average. As a lifestyle asset, it's a great investment for us. But strictly from a financially driven decision, very challenging on this lake unless you go like super big.
Fair. That's good to know. So, maybe enough about your current setting right now, and kind of taking a bit of a dive back into your history, Bill. So we're talking about that current property, but let's take it back to the beginning. How do you get into short-term rentals in the first place? What is your journey into this arena, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in real estate really dabbling in commercial, and I actually bought my first duplex in Bakersfield, California when I was 20 years old playing professional golf, and I didn't know what to do with money that I'd made. Thank God one of my good friends was my CPA, and he had me buy a duplex. I owned it for 19 years. I've built commercial properties. I've done LEED certified construction, a bunch of different stuff. And so I had a ground transportation company in Nashville, about a $9 million motor coach and limousine company. And we were battling Uber in 2012, 13, as they were going into every market illegally, essentially. And then they would worry about the regulation later. So we were lobbying. I was at city council meetings every Tuesday. And literally the only thing that was more volatile than Uber at that time was I kept seeing these AirBnB bills that the city councilman would bring up, and they go to second reading and they get shot down. And then the hotels lobbying started getting involved. So that was the first time I really learned that this was more than just going to the beach for a vacation rental market. Yeah. What Brian Chesky was doing in the early days is they were rolling out into a lot of the urban areas, even before they went into vacation rentals. And that kind of piqued my interest. It was literally 2015. My wife and I were on fall break with our kids in Seaside in 30A. And one of the guy, we're having lunch with a guy named William Wilson. He owns Frangista Beach Property Management down there, a couple hundred properties. Him and I played professional golf in South America together. He was in my wedding as well. And we're having lunch at the pizza place in Seaside. And my wife said, I want to buy a property here. And I call him wee. He's like, well, what's the criteria? She's like, I want to see, hear, and smell the ocean. Okay. Then he looks at me. How much cash do you have? I said, I'll put down $125,000. He's all, well, you can forget about this place, and the Panhandle's not investable today either. But I mean, this is 2015 and I couldn't invest there. So we went to Gulf Shores, found an agent, found a property, used the property management company like most people do that are just getting in. They make that mistake. Just I did the same thing. They sucked. lasted about 90 days. One of my superpowers is marketing. They weren't doing any marketing. They weren't doing any listing optimization. I had no idea who Avery Carl was in 2015, but I used the enemy method to look at my competitors and see, well, why are you only charging $2,500 a week for my place when it's bigger, nicer, closer to the ocean than that piece of shit, across the street? And they couldn't answer that. So I fired them, took everything over, put my marketing skills to the test, and just figured it out. It's not rocket science, to be honest with you. The one separator is you got to know how to, well, there's a couple of things. If you can underwrite properties correctly, if you can get really good financing, like you're bankable, you know how to put your package together. And then if you can design, be nice and proactive. That's all it is for hosting, in my opinion. But then marketing is the key, especially like today. I see Miles, I think we're in 2018 all over again, a couple of years before COVID. Yeah. The market hasn't tanked. It's just that we've gone back to normalization of where we were before COVID, and 90% of the owners today don't know what that means because they got in 21, they got in 22. So even back then, I was running Facebook ads. I was building my email list. I didn't have something like StayFi or Hospitable to help me with emails or anything. I had to literally have a QR code, in a picture frame inside the house to be able to grab emails. I didn't even know it was against Airbnb rules at that time. So I think things really, the more they change, the more they stay the same. And for those of us that have been doing this for a while, it's just normalization. That's how I kind of got started. And then I just expanded. And I think one thing that a lot of people think is, oh, Bill, you play professional golf. You were a successful entrepreneur. You could buy your way into the market. I'm going to tell you, I put $126,000 down on that first property. And it's the only cash that I've invested into my $18 million portfolio. Yeah. So it took me 2 years until I'd saved enough cash. I did $98,000 in gross revenue and about $40,000 net the first year. I did $112,000, about $55,000 the next year. I went and bought another $500,000 property. And then now I've got 2 incomes coming in. Luckily, I didn't have to rely on that income, so it became my investable, nest egg. So I added that next one. I made about another 50. So I got like 50 and 50. I can buy another $500,000 property in a year. But I waited about 18 months so I could get through 2 summer seasons to build up the cash faster, right? Then I went and I bought the third property. So it literally took me 2 years to get to property 2. Then at that point, I'm buying about 1 a year until I got to 2021. And in 2021, I bought 13 properties. And I sold a lot of them. I flipped some of them. It was the most I'd ever bought in 1 year. But when you're looking at market appreciation, especially, and I bought 9 just in Gulf Shores. The market was appreciating in 2020. And really 2021 from about February through August at 3 to 5% a week. So, I mean, I bought 1 property, Miles, that I paid $429 for, put $21,000 into it, and sold it for $670 literally 3 weeks later after I closed. So, and I'm not a flipper by any means, but I look at, there's one thing, I think a lot of people get into this and then they have blinders on, they have tunnel vision, and they're just doing short-term rentals, or they're just doing real estate, or they're just doing crypto, or they're just doing ETFs, whatever it is. I believe if I'm going to spend $1, $10,000, or $100,000, I want that money to go to the absolute best place that's going to give me the best return on investment. I still believe today that short-term rentals in real estate are the number 1 asset class. If you know how to build a super property, if you know how to do marketing, and if you know how to do revenue management, if you can do those 3 things in that 90th percentile or above, you can still fucking crush it. If you can't, if you're average at those 3 things, you're going to struggle.
Amazing. So, you talk about those 3 things that people need to know how to do. And obviously, maybe some people know how to do 1 or 2 of them, or maybe none of them. How do they go about learning how to do those things? And obviously, there's a plug here for Build Short-Term Rental Wealth and what you guys are doing there. Let us know a bit more about that.
Look, I think that you have to learn. I believe in the genius zone, Miles. So look, I suck at back office bookkeeping. So you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to learn how to do it. I have a good enough understanding of being in business for 30 years of how that works. And I know that I'm not, because I hate it, I'm not going to be diligent enough to do that on a daily basis. And I'm sure as hell not going to become the Tiger Woods or the Michael Jordan of it. I know I can become the Michael Jordan or the Tiger Woods of marketing and revenue management. I am really good at making money in business. So that's what I put 95% of my focus on. I have bookkeepers that do all of my bookkeeping for every business, not just my individual businesses that I own in the short-term rental space. So the mentality for me is that we hear the saying, one property, one LLC, one bank account. It's the mindset for me is that that's one business and it has to stand alone, right? So I've always had multiple businesses that I've been operating. So I think you have to be good at those three things. You have to be good at the underwriting process, good at the marketing process. And when I say marketing, it starts with listing optimization, then it moves to off-platform. The bullshit that we hear about you have to drive everything to direct bookings, they're 99.9% of the people in this industry cannot do that, even to get it to 10%. Google or Airbnb is Google. Whether you love Brian Chesky, hate him, whatever it is, that's where you have to make your money in most of the markets. You supplement that with Vrbo, which is Yahoo today, in my opinion. Number one skill, you got to become really good at listing optimization. Having the professional real estate photos aren't good enough. We need like Andrew Keller, style photos. We need the best of the best to stand out. We need to be unique. That's all that a super property is. It's something that is unique, that attracts and creates marketing opportunities for your ideal buyer that maxes out the return on investment. So one of the other things I see people do is they spend way too much money on amenities and interior design. And they say, well, Bill, there's properties in a market that are way more over the top than yours. No shit, because I'm looking at this through a financial lens that literally if I'm spending $13,000 on a hot tub, I better get a return on investment on that hot tub. It's not just about adding a hot tub. It's about adding something that ties to the occupancy. There's too many people have 4 and 5 person hot tubs for a place like this that sleeps 16. I've got a 7-person hot tub, and I'm literally considering, my wife and I were down in it last night. I'm like, you know what? We need a second hot tub here. She's like, are you freaking crazy? No, because we're not even serving 50% of our occupancy. Just like with dining, if I flip I'm sitting at a 18-person outdoor dining table right now. Most people would have 1 8 or 9 footer to where 6 or 7 people will sit there. It's those small things. You ask, where do they learn? I mean, they can go to buildshorttermrentalwealth.com. You can join my Build Short-Term Rental Wealth Facebook group. I'll tell you, I'll help you for free. Just hit me up at BillFaith73 on Instagram. I believe in giving back because I want to level all of your games up, because if I can do that, I've got 31,000 people in my group. I've got the largest conference in the industry. We're going to have 3,000 attendees in February. I'm on a mission to level everybody else up into super properties, to become super host, to build a super life. And if I can do that, Miles, then that means I'm going to be able to charge more. I'm going to be able to increase my profit, because the biggest issue that we have, the biggest thing that's going to crash short-term rentals is the lack of consistency. Yeah. That's why I don't stay at short-term rentals. I'm a Bonvoy Marriott guy. I'm going to VRMA in a couple of weeks. I'll probably see you there. You know what? I'm staying at the hotel. The only time I stay at short-term rentals are the ones that I own, or when I'm booking these mega super properties, when I take 40 or 50 of my mastermind members for a meeting, right? Outside of that, it is just the lack of consistency. And that's why we have not been able to truly crack the business travel sector. You don't see Airbnb and Vrbo or, TripAdvisor, whoever, Expedia, Booking.com at the GBTA convention, because they know they don't have the consistency that Hilton does and that Bonvoy does and the business traveler. Even though we have, some that penetrate, it's not an accepted practice inside of travel management to put into their program. Those are things that I'm trying to change.
Yeah. So, I mean, you touched on there in terms of obviously consistency, but also kind of leveling up your property to match your target audience. How do people even kind of decide what target audience they need to be going after in their
A lot of that's constrained by budget. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I just opened up 2 2-bedroom condos in Coram, Montana last week. It's 4.2 miles from the entrance to Glacier National Park, if anybody's been there before. And I created a whole new class. I bought into a whole new luxury class that doesn't exist. And those are super properties now. 2 bedrooms are super properties. If anybody watched my Super Team Accelerator free training we did last month, the very last one, training number 3, we had Evan Duplessis, who's been through our accelerator. He's in my mastermind. Guy works 4,600 hours a week in the Minnesota oil fields, sometimes 14, 15 days without a day off away from his family. And he wanted to change his life. So he got into short-term rentals. He came to Park City and started at one of my couples retreats. We built out his life plan with him and his wife, Annie. Then he joined my mastermind. Today, he bought a property in Memphis, Tennessee. It's not the nice part of Memphis, Tennessee, for $329,000 in like February. Memphis is a heat box. It's unbearable, Miles, if you've never been there in the summer.
Never been, no.
He dropped in a fire pit. He dropped in a hot tub. He did the enemy method. Nobody had him. Why? Because it's too fucking hot. But he put in two things that it's heat. Why would you do that? He's on building a super property. He made some internal changes, put up a couple of murals, upgraded the furniture. He's going to he's on track right now to do $106,000 in revenue on a $329,000 investment because he created a super property in the not the nicest part of Memphis, doing things that nobody else would do to attract his ideal buyer.
Amazing.
A super property is not about big, mega, super size properties. Sure, some of them are, but it's just about maxing out the attraction, the marketability to that ideal buyer. And he created something that was completely unique in a very small price point that nobody else has. So now he's maxing out his ROI. He's going to do like 41% cash on cash. That's incredible in 2023.
Amazing. So, I mean, he's now created that super property, and I mean, obviously, he's raking in the revenue. But how does he go about, getting people to that property, right? You've talked about Airbnb being like the Google of short-term rentals. But how do you get to number one? How do you make sure that people are seeing how amazing that property is? Because, like you say, if they look on a map, they might not even be looking in that area of Memphis because it's not the nicest part of Memphis. Does he stand out?
Like where he's at, he's doing a lot of those transient business travelers, shorter stays, 2 days. He's even doing gaps with 1 days that a lot of people are afraid to do in an urban market. But that ties into the guest vetting process, right? So whether you're using, Safely or Superhog or whatever that is. So a lot of the component becomes that off-platform marketing, but really it's starting with on-platform first. So even for me, even though I had an $11 million digital agency and I've run $16 million in Facebook ads alone, I start with listing optimization first. And it's what I call value stacking, right? So my first lake house on this lake in 2020, my wife built the first coffee bar essentially and branded it as a coffee bar and did these things. So it's about value stacking, everything from tampons to toothpaste, for guests when they check in, and to adding a coffee bar, to like Evan adding a mural as an example in a market that doesn't have murals. Murals are usually in the big vacation rental markets with big properties and Disney and that type of stuff. So he did the things by value stacking. And when you value stack and you can sustain an affordable price point that's affordable is a relevant term, right? So if you're going to like max out your design, then you've got to max out your ADR, and you have to be targeting to who I call Wendy, the wealthy wife, right? So I name all my buyer personas. So if that's the case, and I'm targeting the wealthy part of Nashville, the Williamson County, the Brentwoods, the Franklins. If I'm targeting in Dallas, I'm looking at Highland Park and University Park and Midtown. If I'm targeting Los Angeles, I'm in Malibu and Westwood and Beverly Hills and Bel Air and those places. You got to know where to be able to target, because you can go in and do that organically for free through the buy-sell trade groups and Facebook. You just got to read the rules. Some allow you to post, some don't, right? So like I use Gulf Shores all the time as an example because it's a drive-in market. I've got 9 properties down there that I own and co-host for. My number one owned properties there. I've got a tier 2 6-4 with a pool that does $357,000 in year number 1. We're going to close out 2023 probably around $285,000, $290,000. So down, but not that bad compared to how hard the market's been hit. But I'm targeting buy-sell trade groups. I'm a member of 10 to 20 in Dallas. I'm a member of 10 to 20 in St. Louis. I'm a member of 10 to 20 in Chicago, Indianapolis, and I'm a member of about 40 in my hometown of Nashville. Also in Birmingham, because there's a wealthy sector there as well. So I rotate. Every week I'm going into one of the different towns because those are the top 5 to 6 markets where people travel into Gulf Shores, right? So if you think about it, if you own in Destin, why would you put a lot of effort into Dallas? Because they're going to drive through Gulf Shores first, right? And if they are going from Dallas to Destin, that's turned from a 5.5 to 6 hour drive into an 8 to 10 hour drive. So they're probably going to fly. We need to understand these things about how we're going to market to that ideal buyer, where they live, what their interests are. Here's the thing that I see with the discerning traveler, because I am one of them. Miles, I'm a guy that will spend $400, $500 a night on a hotel room versus paying $250 in the Airbnb because of lack of consistency. But here's the deal. I want to stay in a place that is just as nice as the home that I live in, right? So when you look at a household income that's making $500,000 a year or more, which I would classify that as kind of a higher income, or $1 million or more, which is like the top 1%, the $1 million or more is really my buyer persona, right? So they have nice things in their house. Their restoration hardware, our house type of furnishings. They have really nice quartz countertops. They have nice finishes, nice lighting fixtures, all that stuff. That's the stuff that I put into my houses. But the great thing is, look, I do have a distinct advantage, Miles. I'm married to one of the best designers in the industry. She designs restoration hardware on a home goods budget. So you also got to know when to go to Home Goods for your European pillows and your sheets, as opposed to overspending on bedding, even though the look of the bedding is critical. It's what I call the Gatlinburg effect. The Smoky Mountains, all of you guys that have the moose and the bear and the black watch, get rid of that shit. It's old, it's dated. It sends a negative connotation to that luxury buyer that your place is not new, it's not fresh. Get white bedding, white duvet covers, white pillows. You got to have at least 7 pillows on every bed, Miles. 7 pillows.
But they're so frustrating to take off.
What's that?
They're so frustrating to take them all off.
You know what? But they fucking look nice in your photos. And then when if you go in and you look at your properties, everybody that's watching this, I want you to go through your last 30 reservations. Your last 30. That's going to take you like 4 minutes. And I want you to count how many of those were female versus male that are booking with you. If they're female, you better let them know that you have tampons and makeup, single wipe makeup wipes, extra toothbrushes, the pads are to do your makeup, extra Q-tips, and you better have beds that look super comfortable and super bougie, because if they don't, you're not going to attract wealthy Wendy to book with you. 73% of my bookings come from female, Miles. So I'm writing my copy to females. Yeah. I'm not just going in and using ChatGPT, the tone. So I'll use ChatGPT, but then I'll put it into Jasper.ai, and I want the tone to be soft and to be written towards females. The design, sometimes it's firmer. Like in this house, at the lake house, we have black cabinets. We've got black shiplap, black and white, all this stuff. But we get into the bedrooms and it softens. We get into the bathrooms and it softens. A lot of that intention is what separates the average or the good from the great. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right there in terms of, in marketing in general, obviously you want to write copy and design images towards your audience. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily always do that with their Airbnb listing, for example. They write what they think that they'd like to hear, but they as a person might not be the ideal audience for themselves, right?
They are not. That's a big issue that I hope people will get over, is you're not typically your ideal buyer, right? Especially if you live in a $500,000 house and you're buying $1 million, investment property. And nailing that ideal buyer, as you know, as a marketer, Miles, is the most important thing. And I believe that the Facebook algorithm is stronger than the Google algorithm today, just because Google doesn't really know all my credit card habits and where I go and check in and all that, because I don't do anything with Google. I'm an iPhone guy, but Facebook knows everything about me. And it's one of the reasons that I always have Facebook ads running for every single property. I never turn them off. And I've got this like whole $1 a day Facebook strategy. It's really $2 a day, because Miles will tell you, as a marketer, one of the fundamental mistakes for those of you that are running Facebook ads, or that you have ran them and you said that they don't work, it's 1, because you don't know how to test. 2, you're not writing copy well enough. 3, your creative is the most important part, and your creative is just average or boring. But most importantly, you're not retargeting. If you don't retarget, then you might as well just never run ads. You got to have at least 25 to 30% of if I'm spending $1, 75 cents goes to primary ad in the ad set number 1, then I'm running 2 retargeting ads minimum behind that, because we need to drive more traffic. We need to have more impressions with that buyer before they make a decision and go from awareness to solution-based to decision phase to actually buy from us.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, you're kind of touching on it there, but some of the don'ts around marketing. So, what are some of the errors that you see people make? Some kind of rookie mistakes that you kind of come across quite often, and you have to kind of course correct people on.
I think that number one, they think that they can get bookings off of Instagram and TikTok, and they're just taking average photos with this thing. I mean, you better be like Kardashian type staged photos if you think that you're going to get somebody to stop and scroll and like your page and be interactive on Instagram with you. You better have really, really amazing TikTok videos if you want people to stop and pay attention. And that all starts really with the property, the design. If it's average, nobody cares. If your content's average, nobody cares. There's too much noise that's out there. So I don't use Instagram. I don't use Facebook. I don't use TikTok. I don't use any of that for my properties. I use Facebook ads. That's it. Facebook ads. And I make sure that the content is exceptional. The best Facebook ad, highest converting Facebook ad was one of my mastermind members, Lori, a couple of years ago. She bought a new property and she just took literally a photo of the Christmas tree up at the beach in a beach property. And she went to one of the services that would create the video for it. And it was Santa Claus doing somersaults around the image. So, literally. And it was for Christmas. And she literally ran the ad for like 2 days at $2 a day on a budget and took $7,800 in bookings because she nailed the right target, the right time, got lucky. But because the ad creative got somebody to stop, and I think she took 4 bookings to create that. So that creativeness is what's critical. You look at, if you're driving down the road in Toronto and there's nothing going on, you're just focusing on the road, you're jamming out, listening to some Taylor Swift, whatever. And then all of a sudden you drive by the accident and you look at the accident, right? Your creative and social has to be the accident. You have to show that car crash. If you don't have the car crash, nobody's going to care.
Amazing. Yeah. Fantastic tip there. I love that. So just kind of thinking ahead, you obviously kind of at the start of the podcast episode, you talked about the market going back towards 2018, and we're kind of back to normal almost, and if I dare say normal. Where do you see kind of the market going in the next few years? Generally, where is demand going to go? But then also, how do you see hosts having to react, and how is the market kind of change around them?
I think that the average host that's losing $1,000 a month today needs to sell their property and get out. Today, cut their losses. The mindset's not to do that. And then you have to make a really big decision. That's either, are you going to reinvest and buy a property that's actually going to generate cash flow, or are you going to just get out and go put it in the stock market or put it someplace else? We have to truly understand our own skills. I think a lot of people are going to leave this industry. I think Airbnb bust is a real thing for average to below average. That AirDNA 50th percentile and below is getting hammered. But the 90th percentile and above, where I live, we're fine. Everything's great. Not complaining at all. That means that there will be more opportunity for people like me. As the market unsaturates, as it opens up, I think a lot of the properties will go back to being second homes as opposed to, just being short-term rentals. I think that a lot of people will fire their property managers and just say, I'm going to have this as a second home. We'll just set it at $500 a night and put it on Airbnb. And if we can get 10 bookings a year to offset us staying there, that's fine. I think the mindset shift is already happening right now, right? But I also think there's a lot of people that see what happens when you build a super property and you build a super portfolio, that you can still not just survive, but thrive. And it really comes back, Miles, to the underwriting process. It comes back to identifying the right market, identifying an investable market, then identifying the right bedroom count and the right sub-market to invest into, right? And that's where a lot of people have gone wrong, really, in the Smokies and in the 30A, the PCB, the whole Destin area. When everybody thought they could just buy any 4-bedroom in 30A, but now you're 5 blocks, You know, you're barely this side of 98 down there, and you have to drive, and there's no parking, and the golf cart ride's 5 minutes. It's not good enough anymore. You know, it's if Dollywood's the number one attraction in the Smokies and you're 25 minutes away, I'm going there in 2 weeks. I posted into my Facebook group looking for a place to stay close to Dolly, and all the people are like, oh, it's 20 minutes away. Well, for me, that's not close. You need to understand what your buyer. I said, I want to be close. To me, that's like, I want to be 3 minutes away. I want to be right there because I don't want to deal with the traffic in that area. I could give a shit about over. I don't care about the mini golf. I don't care about the whiskey tasting. My girls want to go to Dollywood. I just want to get there and get back super quick and then drive home on Sunday, right? So I think a lot of us think that the proximity is not important. The proximity to that water behind me, the access to that water is critical. If I'm up on this mountain, I got to walk down 150 steps carrying an ice chest. That's completely different than no steps to the water. Ski in, ski out versus being a half a block away or a half a mile away. We have to take those things into consideration. I still believe nothing that I do is rocket science. Nothing that I teach is rocket science. This is a pretty simplistic business, to be honest with you. What I do is I re-emphasize the basics. I do give you some, pretty secretive, intelligence to do. But at the end of the day, if you can nail the basics and then level them up, that's how you're going to compete. It's just taking the 2 extra steps. I'll give you an example. Prior to the end of COVID, let's just say September of last year, August of last year, I would make a personalized video for every guest that was over a $5,000 booking. Today, every single booking, Miles, hey, Miles, thanks for booking Sunset Point. My name's Bill. I'm the owner along with my family, my wife, Bria, my 2 daughters, Oakley and Gentry. Just wanted to put a name with the face and let you know if you need anything at all, I'm available to take care of you 24/7. If you need boat rentals, grocery delivery, anything, don't hesitate to text me. Boom, text it to them because we get their number. You know what that is? It's fucking effort. It only takes 30 seconds. Those are what I call the 2 extra steps to create the video and then text it to the guest. Now I'm creating personal rapport. I'm doing something completely unique that nobody does. I'm also earning the right to fail. Because I've established a real relationship, not just through the keyboard on Airbnb and Vrbo, I'm literally earning the right to fail. And I had a guest check into a property I co-host about 3 weeks ago. My cleaners down in Gulf Shores are amazing. They've been with me for 3 years. There was a pair of tidy whities hanging on the back of a door in the master bathroom. They sent me a picture, and it was WTF ? I sent him, literally shot a video. I can't remember the guy's name. Hey, George, I think I left my underwear there. Can you send them back to me? And he replied, laughing my effing ass off in the text. He's like, man, people make mistakes. I picked up the phone. I called him. He's all, it's all right. Everything's cool. And I truly believe, we didn't talk about it, it's because of the video. It's because of the pre-check-in communication. It's not just about, hey, here's the door code. Here's what you do at the property. Here's my touch stay guide. It's about building relationship and rapport. The other thing as a marketer, when I do that immediately, even when I have a strict cancellation policy, Miles, when you booked today with me, you have 48 hours to cancel penalty free. So that also gets Miles to stop looking, because a lot of people will secure your property. Then they will still go and continue to look to see if they can find a better deal, especially if they're an experienced host. I mean, because of the volume of properties I have, I probably get that happens same day cancellations or even within an hour, at least a couple of times a week. So that may not seem like it's worth the effort, but when you have the number of properties that I have and do the revenue that I do, man, 2 a week, if I get 2 cancellations, if I can just keep 50% of them by taking 30 seconds to shoot that video, if that guy would have given me a 4-star if I didn't shoot the video versus now he gave me a 5-star review, all of these things stack on top. That's why I talk about stacking value. That video is a huge component of the value stack, and it costs 0.
Definitely. Bill, fantastic. Do you have any kind of final words of wisdom that you want to kind of hammer home? You've shared a lot of this today. Is there anything that you really want to have as a takeaway item for our listeners?
Yeah, fucking A, Miles, I do. And this is really important. I want to talk about software for a second. And one of the reasons that I use your software is because of the automated response for the guest inquiry that I still believe no other software does that. You guys really need to understand Google. Airbnb is Google. Everything I talk about from a marketing standpoint starts with your listing optimization. Miles, myself, the guys that are in the know that understand SEO that we've tested, we know that the reply time and our communication with our messaging is so critical. That was the number one reason. When I have owner res, I added Hospitable on top of it, and I started just for that. I literally pay the monthly fees just for that one feature. Now you look at their direct booking widget, you look at their AI that's in their program, you look at all the other it's an incredible platform. But just that one component, if you're using another PMS and you don't want to switch, that from a ranking standpoint is worth the price of admission. What you don't understand, if you can't rationalize it, is that you cannot maximize your revenue management if you are not ranked on page 1. If you're ranked on page 2, you're probably going to have to drop your pricing by 20 to 30% to be competitive. If you're on page 3, you're fucking dead. Nobody's going to page 3 or page 4 unless everything else is booked and the dates aren't available on page 1. So I want you to understand my path to become a Hospitable customer a couple of years ago. It's because my current, the PMS I was using did not have that one feature. Now I use about 7 to 10 of the features on top of that and the stable Verbo connection with the API. Because, it's still challenging, as you know, Miles. It's not your fault. Yeah. It's not anybody else's, but yours is stable than the other ones that I've used as well.
Well, that's great to hear. We're working hard in the background to keep it that way.
Good luck dealing with that.
Thank you very much, Bill. We need it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bill. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for all your tips. If anyone wants to go and check out some more stuff on Bill, you can head to buildstrwealth.com. And whereabouts are you on Instagram again, Bill?
Bill Faeth 73. Most importantly, I don't know when this is going to air, but on October 24th, tickets go public for the SDR Wealth Conference, February 5th through the 8th. 3,000 people. Damon John, Hospitable will be there. Pace Morby's coming to speak. I've got Hank Norman, who built Grant Cardone, Mel Robbins brands to teach you how to build your personal brand. It's going to be off the charts. Hopefully I'll see you guys in Nashville.
Sweet. Thank you very much, Bill. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Miles.